I'm not gonna lie. I was already on the cusp of pressing the record button to start recording audio on Jack Hughes and Mikko Rantanen. I was like, yeah, the Devils being in on Carolina forward Mikko, that's a really interesting topic, and we can dive into that because of the implications of the Jack Hughes injury and how it's been a really bad week for the Hughes bros, all three of them, really. But honestly, I was a little bit apprehensive about making that video, because the New Jersey Devils and the Carolina Hurricanes are both playing games, literally in the next few minutes here. So I was already kind of trapped in that danger zone. Like, okay, this is the topic, but do we want to make a video about teams that are going to be playing, which is not really the best business decision because it takes eyes away from this channel and onto the video broadcasts of the actual games themselves. Speaking of which, this show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Go out there and check out the first link in the description to save some money on your VPN, get some free months, and support this YouTube channel all in the process, because I was already a little bit wary about making this Devils and Hurricanes video. When I saw this tweet get published by Ian McIntyre, I was like, bazinga! Let's go, baby! That's a Vancouver Canucks related topic that we can dive into because the Canucks do not have a game today. Ian McIntyre went out there and tweeted this just 10 minutes ago. The Vancouver Canucks are not in the rental market this year. GM Patrik Allvin says to iMac, "You're always trying to make your team better, but I think we're in the position this year where I don't envision any rental pickups like last year. We're just going to continue to build and get better." And this is a pretty notable comment. It's very small. I don't think we need to get any other graphics in this video, honestly, but the fact that Patrik Allvin is already indicating that Vancouver is probably not going to be a rental destination, it is a big deal when you take a look at the names that are on the market and that are available on trades. This eliminates the Vancouver Canucks from trade targets like Trent Frederic, for example, who was already moved to Edmonton earlier this morning, but then some of the top guys as well. Marner? Okay, Canucks aren't getting Marner. Mikko Rantanen? Probably not. There are some other guys on non-playoff teams that could get moved, like a Brad Marchand or a Ryan Donato or a Jason Zucker or a Brock Nelson. These guys are all free agents to be. And then there are other names like Ivan Provorov, Riley Smith, a few others from around the block that do spark interesting discussion as to whether or not a playoff team could go out there and get them. Vancouver has already dipped their toes into the rental market this year with the Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor acquisitions. However, the difference is they acquired those guys pretty much knowing that they were going to make a big effort to sign them, and they ended up doing that successfully. A lot of folks going out there and praising Patrik Allvin for the JT Miller trade. When you think about Miller out, plus Braunstrom and Desharnais and Heinen and all the picks and the prospects, Farnstrom, Dorrington, etc. But you think about those assets going out, and coming in, you've got Filipino, Mancini, you have Drew O'Connor, you have Marcus Pettersson. People are praising those moves, and rightfully so, especially with the Vancouver Canucks finding a way to keep these guys around and to re-sign them. But for the rental market, it does get a little bit interesting because Mikko Rantanen is a rental. If you were going to go out there and trade for this guy, would you be interested in doing that if you weren't guaranteed you'd be able to re-sign him? In New York, you've got Brock Nelson. That was a conversation that we had discussed at length for the Vancouver Canucks. Same thing you could say about Jason Zucker from the Sabres. Sure, he's not Alex Tuch, whom I actually am a pretty big fan of from that Buffalo team. But for Allvin to declare Vancouver being out of the rental market, it does kind of lead my train of thought down two different paths. Firstly, I wanted to highlight just the rental market of last year, and what exactly it was the Vancouver Canucks did at that point. Secondly, I wanted to talk about Boeser, because not being in the rental market indicates a disalignment with what the Canucks have with Suter and Boeser at the moment, so does that mean a trade could be on the horizon involving these names? Who really knows? Let's talk about the last year situation, though, first, because Allvin did say it in this commentary, hey, I don't think that we're going to have any rental guys like last year. Well, the Vancouver Canucks had two main rentals from last season that ended up walking in free agency, and they both happened to have been from the Calgary Flames, Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov. And then, of course, there were other names that the Canucks had on their 23-24 roster that they traded away in the offseason, the Mikheyevs, the Laffertys, the Podkolzins, the Tucker Pullmans, and other guys in there like Daniel Sprong and stuff. But anyways, this Vancouver team did have a pretty good shot with their rental players. Zadorov and Lindholm added elements to the team that definitely improved the team overall. I mean, Lindholm scored the overtime winning goal in Game 4 against Nashville. Probably the biggest goal he had scored as a member of the Vancouver Canucks. But we saw what happened with those assets. Vancouver traded away Kuzmenko, they traded away Yermo Brustevich, a first-round pick, to get Lindholm. They used him for a few months, they got a really nice playoff goal out of him, and they made it to the second round. But that's it. Nikita Zadorov, same thing. He had a stellar series against the Oilers, but he ended up not sticking around in Vancouver either due to contract disputes. And ultimately, you have to wonder whether or not Vancouver is the appropriate team to go out there and make these kinds of moves, because I always go back to that 2020 conversation. When Vancouver made the trade for Tyler Toffoli after Brock Besser got injured in February of 2020, I remember there was a lot of folks like myself saying, hey, the trade is improving the team right now. That's good, right? But the issue was they traded away a Tyler Madden prospect who was pretty good, and I think there was a pick in there too, if I'm not mistaken. The question was whether or not the Vancouver Canucks were the right team to make that trade. Because shelling away the assets that they did to get Tyler Toffoli, Schaller, Madden, a pick, and everything, that's the kind of trade that a contender makes to get a rental at the deadline. Vancouver wasn't really a contender in that time frame. I think they were on the outside looking in, and they ended up making the playoffs in 2020 because of the play-in series and the bubble, and Tyler Toffoli was great, but like Lindholm and Zadorov, they couldn't keep him. So for Patrik Allvin to put his foot down in 2025 and be like, yeah, we're not, in the market for a rental. We're not in that position. It's not appropriate for our team to be in the market to get a Mikko Rantanen, a guy that we trade for and don't have immediate expectations to keep onto our team. It's already been talked about as well by different insiders on the TV and on the radio that Vancouver is in the market, but they aren't really in the market for rental guys. They're on the market for guys that do have some extended term on their contracts. I mean, I think yesterday on How Bro, they were talking about Rickard Rakell from the Pittsburgh Penguins as some sort of a former Penguin that Allvin and Rutherford might be interested in acquiring and whose contract expires in a few years. Obviously, that's a different kind of example, but it's still more in line with what the Canucks might be thinking about. And also, I think, when it comes to the Canucks not being in the rental market, I'm thinking about that Pius Suter, and I'm thinking about Brock Besser, two guys that we had spoken about in the video earlier this afternoon, because they are technically rentals at this point, right? If the Vancouver Canucks were to say, okay, we don't want to do any hard negotiating, we don't want to give these guys the money that they want because it's already been indicated that the money, term, etc., it's not aligned between the players and the team. If the Canucks are not able to figure anything out, then okay, we can trade these guys away to get some other guys whose contracts are a little bit longer, who also fit the profile of the team we want to build, and who maybe just can be a bit better. I mean, if you trade Brock Besser for, let's say, a few picks or whatever, and then you flip those picks for another guy who's got more term and who is a little bit better than Besser, then okay, you actually come out on top here. It's like the JT Miller trade. The New York Rangers weren't giving you Braden Schneider, and you didn't want Ryan Lindgren, so you take on Philip Hedl and a first, and then you flip the first to Pittsburgh for Marcus Pettersson. You get the assets that you want in multiple trades. So is this the indication from Allvin as to what the Vancouver Canucks plan is? Yeah, pretty much it is, right? We'll take a look in the next few days as to where the Vancouver Canucks trade direction ends up going, but for now, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about the Vancouver Canucks not being in the rental market this year? And whether or not you think this is a good thing or a bad thing. What does this mean for guys who are the own rentals on Vancouver, like Besser and Suter? And do you think this means a trade could be coming sooner rather than later? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.